Hey Chris, how are you today?
Hey Tammy, I'm good. How are you doing?
So we're going to talk about managing food sensitivities for me specifically, right? And some tips and some tricks, hopefully for those who may be listening that are looking for some tips with managing their own food sensitivity and or intolerance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I we this will be our third in a series that we were doing. And we'll have the links for the other two, obviously, in our description to let viewers and listeners tune back into the first two
Right.
if it's of importance and interest to them, which
Yeah, absolutely.
we hope it is, right? We hope that the information that we share is beneficial to others. And you want to provide us like a little quickie recap of what we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. So far, what we kind of went over is what's the difference between allergies and food sensitivities, um, common symptoms, of food sensitivities, and how you can get tested. Um, we went into kind of like benefits of working with a qualified practitioner and why we should definitely do that on this journey and how they can help us. And just we spoke a little bit about both of our journeys, like with food sensitivities and because both of us have dealt with them in the past, and I also have clients that are dealing with those, and you also do. And just briefly before, on the last episode, we really, well, not just briefly, we really dove into um, testing takeaways, and after you get your test results back, how to kind of like walk through those and just some kind of tips and ways that you can, walk away from that and start working towards and building towards success. Um, and then the final thing, like we touched on last time, and that we want to dive in a little bit more to today is reading nutrition labels, and dealing with things like cross contamination. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I believe that's what we talked about last time, and we wanted to get into that a little bit more today. But as Tammy said, we have a lot of that content in our previous two videos, which we will provide the links to in the description below.
Very good. Yes. I think really one of our goals in this journey is to help not make this so daunting, right? Because this can be a very overwhelming experience. I know it was kind of like shocking for me when I learned my first initial food sensitivity list, and you go, holy ding dongs, what the heck do I eat now? So, and ding dongs wasn't on my list of things to eat. So that didn't happen very well. But some really tips and lessons that I've learned along the way in the past like 2-3 years on this journey. And one of the first things is I spend copious amounts of time, I hate to say that, but it's true, reading food labels and ingredient lists because the food testing is everything from like whole foods all the way down to your individual spices. And one of the key things for me was black pepper, right? And so many things have black pepper. And I know I remember thinking, a little bit of black pepper at the bottom of the list can't make that big of a deal, can it? Well, yes, it can. So there's a learning curve that we have to navigate. And yeah, of course, we're can test the foods and see how we respond to it. But that also brings in the next tip is being able to pay attention to what our body is telling us. What how does our body respond when we eat something we shouldn't be eating? And for me early on it was I started coughing, I would start sneezing, my eyes would start watering. I never got short of breath, thankfully, but it was a noticeable reaction that people around me started getting concerned. Oh my gosh, are you going to be okay? Because it was just a really visible occurrence,
Right. And I
occasion.
would I would actually stop you right there because that's the key thing, like we talked about before, with the
Mhm.
the shortness of breath. If it goes into that, then you probably aren't dealing with food sensitivities
Right.
anymore. That's food allergies at that point. So
Right.
that's getting close to symptoms that are going to be more pertaining to like, say like food
Right. And
allergies.
that's a whole different issue that we have not touched on, nor are we talking about food allergies, right? This is
Correct. Absolutely.
really as a food sensitivity or a food intolerance.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is paying attention to what your body is telling you. And for some it could be gut related, right? It could impact
Right.
somebody's gut health. And yeah, we're all individual and unique beings. So we just need to pay attention. What's your body telling you? And one great example for me is I was eating rice cakes because rice cakes were doing well for me, or so I thought. And over a period of time, a certain set of rice cakes started to bother me even more. Stuffy nose, all of the issues. And so I'm like, what am I missing? Am I missing? So I went back and I looked at the labels deeper, and farther down the side of the label, it said may contain soy or is processed in a facility that uses soy. And I was like, oh, soy's on the do not eat list. There we go. And so, because I knew we were going to be talking about this, I looked at the label again, and I think it's been updated even further to now include wheat. So it's not
Right.
just soy, it's saying soy and wheat. So for somebody that has a wheat sensitivity, then that would be a thing as well. All of that to say, the may contain or processed in a facility with whatever it might be is also something that we all need to be paying attention to when it comes to eating.
Yes. And the other thing too, in regards to that note, in like cycle back to, how, what is your body telling you and paying attention to your body and why that is so important is that um, companies sometimes are not required to list where or how much of something might be in their products if it's below a certain amount. So if it's below, like, say, a certain percentage, they may not have to list, say, the black pepper or some of these spices and stuff that are in their products because it's below a certain amount. And for some people, that low percentage can really cause a problem to the point that I've had people, and actually, like, a great example of that to talk about, cross contamination, um, and just how much like a low quantity of something can trigger, a response is when you would go out to eat and they would not put anything specifically on the food, but they would cook your food or use the same utensils that they were using with other foods that had certain spices and certain things in it, and you would have an issue.
Yes. Yes. And also to the spices comment, excuse me, I have a friend that can't tolerate onions or garlic. So anything that just says it's a blanket spices, right, without discerning which spices there are, it makes it
Yeah,
even
yeah,
more challenging. And garlic ended up on my list. So I have to be
right,
careful with that as well. So yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
I mean, all this being said, though, too, and I think this is a great call out. I mean, for these types of things, I personally, I believe there's a simpler way than trying to weed foods out of your diet that, you know, in this case, that are triggering foods. And for example, right now we're talking about, using our food list, reading labels and things like that, which is still pertains to this next thing. But if you are trying to take these steps and you're coming from a place where you've had a traditional diet or a certain diet for a very long period of time, it's going to take you a very, very long time to get all of the foods out of your diet, figure out all the places that these foods are hiding. the spices and things that are hiding. And truthfully, like in these cases, it's in regards to your past, Tammy, like in regards to like exclusion diets, that can be an excellent place to start from. And that being said, a lot of times people will jump into exclusion diets. They'll do exclusion diets for a little bit of time, and then they'll roll out of them very quickly. And a big thing that Tammy and I worked on, when she was coming out of her exclusion diet, was that to add just maybe one or two things, and this is a big one, add one or two things back in maybe a week to, that things that weren't on her list, or may have been on her list, and just see how she responds to it. Getting like away from like processed foods and just being able to stick to like whole foods that aren't on your list and building from there is probably the best way, in my opinion, to start back in this journey. Because if you start any other way, then you're kind of trying to pick needles out of haystacks from all over the place. Yes, you're starting from a new place. You've say clean slated your diet, like we just talked about. So then, okay, well, you don't have meals that you can really rely on anymore. So a good goal and a really big tip in regards to success in this area is to set yourself a goal every week of coming up with one to two new meals that you can start eating on a regular basis to build out a new, way of eating.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing I was thinking of, and when you mentioned crispy, I have come across, a couple of recipes, right, for making my own tortilla chips out of tortillas, just cutting them up and then baking them a little bit, or baked chickpeas, make chickpeas crunchy, and then you can season them both. Anything that you make yourself, you can season it with whatever spices that work for you. You're not having to, we're not buying something that's already got stuff in it that you can't eliminate. So, and I also came across a recipe, I haven't tried it yet, cottage cheese crisps. So I'm going to do that. Yes, right. So while I tolerate dairy, I don't tolerate the lactose. So there are companies out there that do make lactose free milk, half and half, cottage cheese, and just regular blocks of cheese. They make them naturally, and it's divine. I must say it's divine. Having to give up some other things, it's nice to be able to find those find that needle in the haystack, as you mentioned, that does work.
Right,
That
right,
does
right,
work.
right.
So
Yeah, on the flip
it
side.
kind of lessens the angst of not being able to eat something else when you can replace it with something that's equally as healthy and or maybe even a little healthier.
Yeah.
With the spice situation, because I've got a long list of spices that don't work super well anymore for me. Eating out is a little bit of a challenge. So the one thing that I have found that seems to be working so far and still is a salad. And naturally, I just don't get the croutons or whatever might not be on my diet.
Mm-hmm.
But I have learned to take my own salad dressing to the restaurants. So I make my own salad dressing. I've created my own recipe. Chris, I know you and I have talked about me making this video for quite some time, so I will invest some energy this weekend and make a salad dressing recipe. But to help anybody that might be like looking for a new spice or way to use things, one of my go-to tricks is to save olive juice, because I can eat the olives that are made in water. So it's olives, water, and salt. So it's
Mm-hmm.
already a salty, yummy brine, if you will. So
Right,
I add that into my salad dressing, in addition to the distilled vinegar that you and I have talked about, and the
right,
oils and a couple of other little spices, and
right.
just mix that up and take it to the restaurant with me. And yeah, so then I can eat out if I so choose. And Yeah,
yes, have your own dressings ready and things that,
exactly.
yeah, that work for
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I like
Yeah.
how that piggybacks exactly off like what, like I was just talking about, like having those goals, creating like new things, for yourself. And I think that was, might have, did that come out of, I know that I challenged you like a few times now because you were saying at one point, a couple of times, you're like, you felt trapped by what you could eat. And I was like, Tammy, I was like, I challenge you to start trying to come up with one or two things a week, that you can, make for yourself that you can eat that you
Hmm.
enjoy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and I think it was, going just using the terminology a no-brainer, right? Because I was putting
Yeah.
olives in my salad, and as I was dipping them out of the jar and putting them on my salad, there was obviously some juice from the olives, and I'm like, this tastes pretty good. So I started
Uh-huh.
adding the olive juice, and there you go. And
Very
another
good.
trick that I've read and learned from quite a few places about recipes is to save the liquid from the chickpeas. I buy
Mm.
the canned chickpeas, and quite a few people, brilliant people online have indicated. Sorry, I don't have any shout outs for names of because I've seen so many. But the bottom line is to save the liquid from the chickpeas, the cans,
Mhm.
and use that in cooking. So I have used that like in soups and things of that nature.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Very good.
just taking a few minutes to try to think outside the box and how can I repurpose this? And it saves money too, right? Because now we're not throwing that stuff away or washing it down the drain or whatever. It's a double use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's fun. It feels satisfying when you're like, "Whoa, look what I did. Look at this." And it actually tastes good too. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
half the battle. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yep.
My recommendations as a health coach is to first, like when you come back with your list of things, to, you know, draw up a clean slate, find, eat the foods that that aren't problems. And as Tammy was putting it, pay attention to how your body feels. The part of second thing that I recommend is set goals for yourself to rebuild your eating patterns. Set goals for yourself, like, to come up with two new meals a week that you can start implementing and move forward with. And I think that the third one that I think you did like a wonderful job of spiraling into it, and that is creating, like, having like a list of foods that you can eat, as opposed to focusing on your list of foods that you can't eat. Keep a list of all the foods that you can eat and the meals that you can eat. Because if you're looking at that and you're creating things off of that, you'll feel a whole lot less trapped in your eating, as opposed to like constantly looking at what you can't eat. And that's, I think, the big three for me.
Yes, and to tag onto that real quick, I keep a list on the refrigerator. So it's a quick reference. Like if I'm struggling one day, like I don't feel like I can eat anything, there's nothing to eat. What do I eat? I'll stop and go, oh yeah, let me look at that list and then refresh my brain. And then I'll be like, oh, that's right. I can eat, whatever. Depends on, whatever the mood is. But I think my biggest tip and takeaway is we have to remain positive, right? We
Yeah,
have to keep a
absolutely.
positive mindset on this next phase of our life, this next stage in life, whether we're young or old. Use it for the betterment of our bodies. This food sensitivity or intolerance is kind of like a wake up call that what we were eating or what we are eating is not serving us well for whatever reason. You're gonna feel better. You will feel
Yes,
better.
absolutely.
You very well could lose some weight if that's an indirect goal that you didn't even know that it was because of a food intolerance or food sensitivity and causing inflammation in our bodies, right? So just try to keep a positive mindset on that. And keep a list of foods, as we said, that are tolerable, but tracking, right? If we can write down maybe high level things, if we don't want to get in the weeds of what we're eating, but circling back to, I know we talked about it before, won't spend a lot of time food tracking, pen to paper, use your computer, create an Excel spreadsheet, a Google sheet, or a tracking app. There's many of them out there. So there's many ways that we can be tracking our food if we want to and make that a priority. And then it makes it
Absolutely.
easier when you've been eating something and you meet with that healthcare professional and you're trying to like whittle down why you're still not feeling well. You can say, okay, this is everything that I've eaten, and these are the problems or symptoms that I'm still experiencing, so that you can either learn if it's still food, or maybe there's something else going on that you didn't know about that
Absolutely. Yeah.
the food sensitivity was covering. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
very good.
I think that I have everything out that I need to. What about you?
I'm 100% good on this side. Just wanted to share some tips and lessons learned in my journey, so that hopefully there's the person that's listening that needed to hear one of these ideas works for them and gives them the light bulb moment that they needed.
Very good. Well,
Very
it's good
good.
to see you.
Thank you, Chris. As always, grateful. Thank
Take care,
you.
guys.